It's the worst of the CBC for October 31st, 2019, the show where I watch the CBC so you don't have to. And it's a very spooky worst of the CBC today, well, especially if you're in Western Canada, because as we've learned, not only does Trudeau hate the Western Canada, the Liberals hate Western Canada, now the media, which is part of Trudeau and the Liberals, also hates Western Canada. So I guess we didn't learn anything new. It's just more of a confirmation of that. So it's pretty obvious what the worst covered story of the day is. It's pretty obvious what the biggest omission of the day is. And then the Rosemary Barden scale will come later. So the worst covered story, we'll just say, is it's all Trump impeachment now, right? We've thrown Canadian news out the window. Just whatever. We're just going to cover the Trump impeachment. And they're doing it poorly. Shocker, shocker. The biggest omission is, well, they're not covering the fact that Western Canada is getting hammered hard and industry is fleeing. So Trump. It is 24-hour news now on the CBC. Trump. The Democrats have voted for impeachment. What does this mean? And it's funny that I hear the same language of the SNC-Lavalin, but look at how it's used more dishonestly this time. So I've been talking about the fact that they would cover SNC-Lavalin, and when they were covering it, even when it was forced to be in the news, when the Ethics Commission came out, they were saying, well, the Canadian public doesn't really understand SNC-Lavalin. Yes, that's a problem for the Conservatives, that people don't really understand it. Yes, it's not being understood. It's not very clear. So they're using Canadians are too stupid to understand it to say, no. Right now, they're saying, okay, the reason why Russia didn't work is because people couldn't understand, but people can understand this, right? People understand this impeachment. It's a quid pro quo, right? It was a quid pro quo on Russia, right? People can understand quid pro quo, right? This is where they're going. Very simple. Now, I can't believe I have to do this, but we have to explain what a quid pro quo is and what... Listen, I have to explain. It's foreign policy for dummies. And by dummies, I mean people at the CBC, Global News, CTV, probably CNN too. Okay. Quid pro quos on foreign policy are not illegal. What is a quid pro quo? A quid pro quo is I do something for you, you do something for me. So I went to the store to buy this sweater, okay? There was a quid pro quo between me and wherever the hell I got this. I gave them money. They gave me sweater. Quid pro quo. Is that illegal? No, that's how things go on. Quid pro quos are part of our life, right? It's an exchange. Now, here's what we're talking about in quid pro quo. It has to be a quid pro quo for something illegal. I hate my neighbor. He's a jerk, right? He gets murdered by a contract killer, okay? Did I break the law? No, it was the killer that murdered him. But can we prove there was a quid pro quo between me and the contract killer to do something illegal? So if you can prove quid pro quo between me, I give money or a favor to a serial murderer, contract killer, he then kills someone, quid pro quo for an illegal act. So the illegal act isn't me giving someone money. The illegal act is me giving someone money in order to commit an illegal act. Now, what this act would be quid pro quo to investigate Biden for corruption. Okay, so here's what would have been illegal. You cannot do a quid pro quo. You cannot use American taxpayer dollars, Canadian taxpayer. You cannot use federal tax dollars to enforce your own private interest. Like something like you cannot take money from a corporation like SNC-Lavalin to then use tax dollars to create a private law for SNC-Lavalin, then to get them off federal prosecution so you could keep giving them more taxpayer dollars. That'd be a quid pro quo of something that is illegal. Or in this case, it is you cannot give... cannot withhold aid from the Ukraine and say this aid is conditional upon you investigating one of my opponents. Now, here's where things get murky. Joe Biden withheld $1 billion in federal loan guarantees from the Ukraine in order to get them to stop investigating a company that his son was on the board of, which he had no qualifications to be on. Mitt Romney's kids are also on the board. So it's swampy. Okay, so Biden's excuse and Obama's excuse is, well, we were withholding aid for generalized corruption in the Ukraine. Now, that means that the Democrats have said there's generalized corruption in the Ukraine. Trump's claim is we were withholding aid for more generalized corruption in the Ukraine. And you see in the transcript, he also talks about election meddling. He is not just talking about Joe Biden. So yes, there might be a Biden element to this, but Trump clearly has the case that I was talking about other things other than Biden. They're more than just Joe Biden. So again, we get to the point of this whole impeachment thing, this whole Ukrainian hoax, this Adam Schiff concocted nonsense. If you're going to say that you're not allowed to withhold aid at all from a country, then you have to say that Biden was guilty. And then if you're saying Biden was guilty by this logic, then Trump is right in asking Ukraine to investigate Biden because you're saying he's guilty. So then you want to impeach Trump for investigating Biden for what you agree Biden is guilty of, right? You see how the logic here doesn't make sense. right? So this is just, it's the best case scenario for the Democrats. They win civil war. Like, it's absolutely absurd, this whole thing. And it's wasting America's time, and now it's wasting Canada's time. And what we need to be talking about now is the fact that Energy and Canada are one of the oldest oil and natural gas companies in Canada is leaving Canada. They're pulling out of the West. There's this mass exodus of companies from Western Canada. And we have this Wexit movement, which is real, which is pissed, which is going to become a political party. Eventually, we're going to get a Western-specific political party, like we have the Bloc in Quebec, because our government does not only doesn't care, is actively engaged in destroying Western Canada. And I say this as someone from the East. It is pretty clear here. It's pretty clear from my point of view that we are continuing to kick Alberta and Saskatchewan in the nuts and then laugh at them when they fall down. It's absolutely disgusting. All these energy companies are leaving them. Trudeau's hit them with Bill C-69, Bill C-48, destroying their economy. And then as he destroys their economy, he takes their money and gives it to Quebec, who then he hands out and will go to the wall. Like, can you imagine if Bombardier was going to leave Ontario or Quebec or auto plant? We throw hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, this is a big problem. I hate doing this. Listen, as an Ontario person, I hate when we just throw monies at companies who want to leave Ontario instead of actually fixing the problems as to why they're leaving. We just cycle them in this corporate welfare tax where we then increase corporate taxes. Then they say, okay, fuck it, we're going to leave. And they're like, oh, no, we'll increase corporate welfare too. And then who really gets hurt by this? Taxpayers. And a few people keep their jobs temporarily until the system collapses and then they just leave anyway. So it's not a real fix. This wouldn't actually help Alberta, just these cash influxes. It would be a Band-Aid solution, and I get the anger that they do that in Ontario and Quebec, and they do, and your point is valid, but it's not actually a fix. The real fix is, and what I want to, is fix the problems that are causing companies to leave Alberta and Saskatchewan, and that is the attack from the federal government on Alberta and Saskatchewan. Stop with these stupid regulations that are paid for by American oil companies to make sure that they can buy our oil cheap and they resell it at a higher price to the global market. It's, listen, east to west, Alberta, I'm sorry. Sorry about these idiots. I'm sorry. Listen, I'm from Toronto. I'm sorry we all voted for Captain Blackface. Really sorry about it. And I get why you're pissed. Okay? But, like, what if you separate, I'm going to come visit. Can I come visit? Can I come over Thanksgiving? Western Thanksgiving? I'll put on a hat. It'll be great. Okay, anyways. So that's the CBC. 10 out of 10. Because it's just not even covering the news. Just American nonsense. Nothing of value was said the entire hour on CBC. So we're going to get 10 out of 10 on the Rosemary Barden scale. I'll see you guys in November.